everyone, I am here with your astrology for the month of June, the headlines for the month. For those of you who are looking for the May one, I had a lot going on. Please see previous video about some of the things that were going on that I didn't manage to do a May astrology video, but I'm here. I'm here for June one. I'm here if you want to know the headlines. If you want more astrology from me, I also do a TikTok once a week where I just talk about the headlines for the week really quickly. It's like a minute long, give you like the basic headlines. But if you want like more details, I do have on my Patreon, if you're interested, I do have a weekly in-depth weekly report so that you can find out about all the stuff that's going on during the week. It kind of helps you plan for the energy of the week. But I'll give you the headlines for June because at least you can then, kind of see what the energy is for the month, and it does, still help you kind of plan things. And I just find this stuff kind of interesting, so that's why I do it. But June looks like a much better month than May. Of course, like May was like a pretty intense month, I think, for a lot of us. We had, eclipses going on. We had both a lunar eclipse and solar eclipse. And so eclipse seasons tend to be times where stuff is revealed. There's new endings and beginnings. There's lots of shakeups going on. We also had a Mercury retrograde, which we're coming out of this month. So it was just like a more difficult month. June looks a lot better. June looks like a much easier month. A lot of energies kind of shifting up, and it does tend to be just a little bit more pleasant. So if you were like me and had like a really intense month of May, this month looks like one to look forward to. It's got like a little bit happier energy to it. So I am looking forward to that. So let's get started. So the first thing I have is that on Friday, June 3rd, and I'm probably going to post this video on Friday, June 3rd, we have Mercury going direct. So Mercury was a retrograde. The retrograde is ending today. There's often find like the end of a retrograde, there's like a little bit of miscommunication comes up. But after that, things start to get clearer and clearer as we move away from the retrograde. So you can look forward to that. Mercury is currently in the sign of Taurus right now. It's going to go direct at 26 degrees of Taurus. So if you have planets around 26 degrees, you'll probably feel this more than others. Sorry, I was just looking at that. Anyway. But you'll probably feel this more than others. But I think everyone will kind of notice that communication starts to become a little bit clearer. Mercury is a planet of communication and travel, and he's in Taurus, which means like it's still not going to be like the quickest. It's going to be kind of slow, a little bit more cautious, people being a little more careful, like what they say, how they say things, and also like being a little bit more cautious with travel plans. That'll speed up later in the month, which I'll get to, but there is, things are starting to clear up. So we're moving away from some of that energy of like miscommunication and things is starting to move forward. We're starting to move away from all that again. Then on Saturday, June 4th, we have Saturn going retrograde at 25 degrees of Aquarius. So the outer planets, we don't tend to feel them as much in our own personal lives. If you have planets around 25 degrees or you have a lot of Aquarius planets, you might feel this a little bit more, but we tend to notice these things more in kind of the news cycle, like in the outside world. So Saturn's about rules and regulations. It is about constraints and boundaries, and it's in Aquarius right now. So he's very much about rules and regulations, about like what kind of community do we want? What's the best for everybody? And when he goes retrograde, sometimes what happens is those rules get loosened up. We start to see that, maybe some rules get repealed, or, certain restrictions get repealed. And this can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what it is and your perspective on it, of course. It's interesting that right now, with the unfortunate events that happened last month, very tragic in the United States, there's a lot of talk about rules and regulations around things like, like gun laws and things. There's also, obviously there's been a lot of talk about things like abortion. Now, I'm not saying either way what you should or shouldn't think. I just think it's interesting people are talking about these things, because part of Saturn retrograde is also people review rules and regulations. People look at the rules and say, does this make sense? Should we have different rules? Should we change them? What's going on? So no matter what side you're on, it's just sort of, it's interesting that people are talking about it, and I think it's going to be something people continue to talk about into as we go into the month of June. The next headline that we have is that on Monday, June 13th, we have Mercury moving into Gemini. And this is where we'll really start to feel it pick up. Like we will start to feel it pick up in that first week of June. But then once we get to the 13th, I think that things will start to really move forward again. Mercury, again, planet of communication and travel. He's moving into the sign of Gemini, which is a sign he's pretty happy with. It's one that he rules, meaning that that is like a home sign for him. Sorry, I'm just getting my Oracle of the Radiant Sun cards because they often have like pretty good keywords. So where's our Mercury here? All right, Mercury, where are you? Okay, so we have Mercury starts off as it moves forward in Taurus, and the keyword there is resistance. I would agree with that to a certain extent. It definitely means like things are, moving super fast. But when it moves into Gemini, keyword is excitement. And I would agree with this. Mercury is very excited in Gemini because Gemini is all about communication as well. It's about learning new ideas. It's about sharing ideas. It is, it's very much about like short trips and just gathering lots of ideas and sharing them with other people. So I see a lot of communication going on, as we move throughout the month of June, like really picking up in that area. This also means if you're planning any short trips, mid-June to later in June, they'll probably go quite well. We then have a full moon on Tuesday, June 14th. This full moon is at 23 degrees of Sagittarius. So again, if you have planets around 23 degrees of your chart or lots of Sagittarius planets, you'll probably feel this full moon more than others. This full moon has a nice sextile with Saturn. Sextiles are always easy aspects. So there is sort of like this sense of like having structure, being organized about things. It has a square though to Neptune, which means that like sometimes we let our fantasies run away with us. Neptune is very much about fantasy, escapism, spirituality, and especially with the square there, it can mean like, there's this part of us that's like, okay, we need to get down to work, we need to get things organized, but the other part like wants to dream about things and want things to sort of just remain, in that sort of dreamy type of energy. I think as well, full moons do tend to be times of a lot of emotion. They tend to be times of, like weird dreams, and sometimes like people act out a little bit. And especially if people are struggling with things like addiction or with, any mental health issues, that can be a time where it triggers some things. Now, of course, we always have free will, and it just means like, hey, if you have those issues, like take care of yourself, make sure you're being kind to yourself, make sure that you're just taking note, like, okay, full moon, things might be a little crazy. I have to be like extra kind and nice to myself, not be too hard on myself during this time. It is a full moon in Sagittarius, which does tend to be like a pretty easygoing full moon. So unless, you kind of have any extreme issues going on, it's probably going to be a pretty pleasant full moon on the 14th. Tuesday, June 21st, the sun moves into Cancer, as it does as the time of year. Oops, I drop things. It just changes our focus. Like very much when the sun is in Gemini, our focus is on sharing ideas and communicating and talking to people, especially the people that we're close to. Sun in Cancer, things kind of slow down and mellow. We want to be at home more. We want to kind of sit in the backyard more. We want to we nurture ourselves and nurture our homes. Like it just has more of a nurturing type of energy to it. We start to get into like summer mode at that point. Sun in Gemini, just looking here, its keyword is versatility. I would agree with that. Gemini, very versatile, lots of ideas going on. Definitely likes to know about a lot of different things and is flexible, can go with the flow. With Cancer, it's resourcefulness. I would agree with that to a certain extent. Like Cancers are very resourceful with what they have and are very good at utilizing what they have in their home to make things more beautiful around them. So energy sort of shifting, solstice. I mean, it is the solstice as well. For those in the northern hemisphere, it's the summer solstice, and those in the southern, it's the winter solstice. So if you celebrate those things, that's the day it's going to be on. It does look like a really nice solstice, so good celebration there. Wednesday, June 22nd, Venus moves into the sign of Gemini. So it's changing signs into Gemini. Now it's interesting, between the 13th and the 22nd, we have several planets that are in their home signs. They're in the signs they rule. So we have Gemini Mercury in Gemini. We have Venus in Taurus. We have Mars in Aries. we have Saturn in Aquarius. So we have like a few, oh, and we've had for a long time Neptune in Pisces. So we have like 5 planets that are in their home sign. So very harmonious energy. But then on Wednesday, June 22nd, Venus is going to move into the sign of Gemini. So she goes from Taurus, where she's very much about like nature and beauty and enjoying pleasures and physicality, to like she wants to be wooed with like ideas. She wants people to make her laugh. Like Venus is the planet of love and beauty. When she's in Gemini, she wants someone that's interesting. She wants someone who can talk to her. She wants someone who can flirt with her. So Venus in so in Taurus we have, the key word here is romance. In Gemini, it's flattery. That's an interesting one. Yes, Venus in Gemini wants flattering words for sure. Now, it is, be careful, sometimes flattery isn't what it's cracked up to be. But, it's very much like we want to hear nice things. We want words of affirmation given to us. Venus in Gemini tends to have more of a sporty aesthetic as well. Tends to be like a little bit more like trendy, casual, but like it's like casual, but not like sloppy casual. It's more like, kind of like streetwear sort of attitude and vibe to it. And that's kind of more of the energy of Venus as we get into later into the month. And then on Tuesday, June 28th, we have a new moon at 7 degrees of Cancer. Again, new moons are always a great time to set intentions. So if you know what the Cancer house is in your chart, you can set intentions there. If you don't know, that's fine. Cancer rules things like the home, family, ancestry, so anything involving those things, it's a good time to set intentions for. This particular new moon has a square with Jupiter, so it's kind of like there's some tension about expanding things or doing new things. It's like we're like, no, I kind of want to keep things the way they are. And it has a trine with Vesta, so this is a really great time to make decisions about your home. Like if you're looking at moving or doing renovations or just like doing like some clearing of clutter, it's a really great time to set intentions for that. We also have on this day Neptune going retrograde at 25 degrees of Pisces. It's interesting, there's a lot of 25 and 26 degrees going on here this month. So if you have planets around those numbers, degrees, you may feel this, Again, we don't tend to feel the Neptune retrograde too much in our personal lives, but we may see stuff in the news. And Neptune rules things, like I said, spirituality. It rules, things like music and art. It also rules, anything that makes us feel like we're one with others. It dissolves our boundaries, which is why it also rules things like drugs and alcohol. And it's going retrograde, meaning that we're kind of reviewing those things. We might be relooking at our spirituality. We might be, kind of going over maybe older pieces of art we made and remaking them again. So there's a sense of like reviewing these kind of things, thinking about them, talking about them that's going on. Mercury retrograde, you may see stuff in the news about these issues, and there may be a lot of talk about things like addiction coming up in the news around that time. So that's what I'm seeing for the month of June. Overall, it looks like things are actually like, it's sort of like the energy is lightening up. There's not as much intensity. We start to move forward again with things, but also has this element, because of the Saturn and Neptune retrograde, of reviewing things and retaking a look at things again and thinking like, can we do things a little bit differently this time? So I hope whatever your sign is, that your month of June is going well. Thank you again for all of your support. It means a lot to me. And yeah, I just appreciate you guys watching and all of your comments and things. And as always, peace and love. Amen.